Welcome to Beyond Bitcoin, open source BitShares Hangouts. These Hangouts starts every Friday at 1 p.m. UTC. To be in the loop, follow the BitShares tag on steemit.com and follow Official Fuzzy, who is hosting these Hangouts. Find the weekly BitShares open source Hangout open agenda post to participate in the discussion and RSVP a topic or proposal. BitShares is the fastest decentralized exchange in the world and is competing for the fastest blockchain in cryptocurrency. BitShares offers enterprise scalability, self-governance and separation of power built in. With BitShares, you can create and trade your own cryptographically secure cryptocurrency with user-issued assets. Build and trade custom smart coins based on world-class financial smart contracts. Define and trade mark-backed assets that track the price of real-world investment vehicles, freeing from exposure to middleman risk. Work for the chain, based on votes by the community.
Today is Friday, August 18, 2007, and this is episode 30. Welcome everybody to another BitShares Open Agenda Hangout, where we join every week with the BitShares community members who are all easily able to join our Mumble server every Friday during these hangouts. You can go to our steemit.com threads, which are at official fuzzy on Steemit, to find all of our posts and all of our various hangout schedules. So we'll see you there soon. With today, we have our first, go ahead, get in here. We have our first order of business on the agenda, as always, going to come from Steam Power and his BitShares State of the Network. That is at Steam Power on steemit.com. The first bullet he provides today from his extracts for the week's BitShares State of the Network report is a BitShares UI worker proposal raised by Bill Butler has been voted in with slight modification. Existing issues in the BitShares UI GitHub page will be given an estimated hourly value. An estimated issue is prefixed with a number in brackets, like bracket 2, a nasty bug. In this example, the bug is valued at 2 hours, $125 per hour. In other news, BitSpark will be switching to the BitShares blockchain from Bitcoin because it is better suited for the company's remittance businesses. Remittance is a big business. Next is Polynex has moved 30 million BTS from their cold wallet after the BitShares community raised issues with them putting the BitShares network into maintenance mode due to lack of funds in their hot wallet. This has happened on a number of occasions. This transfer has also debunked the theory that they had lost access to this cold wallet. Next is the Billion Hero campaign website, which has launched, and you can now sign up for the newsletter and free coin. And finally, LSBTC, Lightspeed Bitcoin, and FBTC, Fast Bitcoin UIAs have been registered on the BitShares blockchain. Both UIAs have been registered by Cryptonomics. Now to the community agenda that everybody signs up and RSVPs for every CM Steam is going to be talking about the Poloniex cold storage account and their initiative to get to the bottom of all of the rumors. We're going to follow it up by Alex P. Morris, who has worked on BitShares take orders working as expected, and he has put in a lot of effort to fixing this problem out of his own time and pocket. We will then move into an update on the GUI worker proposal for being approved, and then we will talk a little bit with Talkinator also on communication between different language segments of the BitShares community. We will then go into ideas for future BSIPs that will be talked about by Custom Miner, and I'm going to just really quickly cap this off today with a discussion about whether we would like to change the date of these hangouts from Friday to Saturday. And I will also be posting a poll this week to Steemit regarding the issue. So with that said, let's go ahead and move on to CM Steam, aka Custom Miner, to talk about his first topic for the day.
Cool, can you hear me all right, yeah?
Perfectly.
Excellent. So, maybe a week or two ago, we we began getting the same, error message in Poloniex saying there's a problem with the BitShares network that might require an upgrade or whatever, and really poor communication between from Poloniex to BitShares as to what was wrong, and some simple looking into their cold and hot storage accounts, you could see that their hot account, basically where you can withdraw your funds from, had 20 odd BitShares in it, so you couldn't withdraw 1,000, right? So they needed to move some funds from cold storage into their hot wallet, and the major rumor that had been circulating for the last several months was that they had lost their access to this cold storage account. Reason for this is that the reason for this rumor was that they hadn't moved any of the funds from the cold storage account into the hot wallet since like September 2016. Like, we're talking 10 months, which was pretty crazy. But so on Telegram, a couple users kind of joked about, we should make a token to kind of saying just to troll them, basically send it to their cold storage account and just named something like, Poloniex has lost access to this account. So I created a token, a UIA, a user issued asset called Polo Lost Keys, with the description basically, the rumor was that they lost access, and I began distributing this token out to a bunch of users in the BitShares community, and we began sending these tokens to the cold storage account with memos basically saying, hey, have you lost access? Send the BTS to the cold storage account, and within 24 hours they had moved the funds from the cold storage to the hot wallet. Effectively, we audited their accounts to a certain degree, so this is pretty good. It's much faster than raising a ticket. People complaining about waiting months for tickets. We can just send them memos saying move funds.
So they responded pretty well.
Yeah, actually, users took to Twitter to basically say, prove that you have access to these accounts, otherwise you're running a fractional reserve and you're out like $50 million. And, users were like, speculating over whether we would bail them out or not, or whether they'd have to go buy $50 million worth of BitShares. So I think it was quite important for them to prove that they still had that, close to 300 million BitShares in their control. So they proved that they have access, and they've moved 2 batches of 30 million at this point. So I think this is great, that we will be able to get them to update their hot wallet with funds from now on, and hopefully we won't have that annoying message pop up that really kind of spooks investors when it says there's a problem with the network, and that problem is that
this is kind of where the roots of all this came from, right? Because Poloniex consistently is saying that BitShares and Steam wallets are down, while other markets don't seem to have a lot of these problems, and they say that it's the fault of BitShares and Steam developers or maintenance. They need to do it, not Poloniex, right? That's where it, like, when somebody comes in to trade on Poloniex and sees that's like a negative, a constant negative mark on our reputation,
Yeah, certainly. I feel like that was the main grievance that the community had, that they weren't reaching out. If there was a serious issue, right, then they should have reached out, and that wasn't happening. And it really feels like a default response that they just throw up when something is wrong. And, it's not uncommon to wait like over a month for a ticket, and...
Does it seem like there's things that we can actually do to help them, so there's no way that this happens on their end as much?
Well, I think it's just that I think they're spread a bit thin. They've got a very large user base, like over 100 cryptocurrencies. Tickets take ages to get responses to. The troll box is gone. So I think just sending these, these Polo Lost Keys every once in a while to remind them to top up their hot wallet is good enough. Other than that, maybe getting them to change the default message saying we haven't topped up our wallets, rather than network is down. Because as you say, it's negative when you see the message saying that the network is unstable when it's not on other exchanges. Exactly. It could cause users to be like, oh, I'm selling, it's not good.
Yeah, I think there were several good things about this. I mean, one, it was fun to watch, and then two, it was good to see once they actually could actually indicate that they actually had control of the wallet. So it's good. And three, I think, it was also good for anybody who had their tokens on their network. But I think it still highlights what you guys have already been mentioning, which is there's a lot of times when their hot wallet is pretty much depleted, and people who are trying to withdraw are unable to. And since they have demonstrated that they have the ability to actually fill in the hot wallet, it's just an inability or a reluctance on their part to help out their customers.
Exactly. I mean, they were, for like the last 10 months, effectively running a fractional reserve. They were using users' deposits to fund withdrawals for some reason other than, instead of just moving cold storage funds into the hot wallet. So I don't know why their reasoning for this was, but now I guess hopefully they will stick to moving cold storage funds to the hot wallet as an improved practice. And G-Chicken's pointing out that they didn't actually ever send any of the Polo Lost Keys tokens back to any of the users that sent them, nor did they approve the proposals. So I think they might have been a bit salty about that and just proved ownership by moving the cold storage BitShares funds, which was the goal in the end.
Right.
Well, one thing that I'll say that I love about this initiative, and I hope that you utilize the tokens that I give you guys to upvote and promote it around the general community, because what this type of stuff does is it kind of shines a spotlight, right, on something that Poloniex, for whatever reason, whatever the motive, or if there's really no motive, they're just, whatever, they're going to think more about it now, right? And they're going to see that there are community members who will all work together a little bit in little ways to get these things taken. So I'll say this, if you guys ever want to run something, run it by me and let me know, and I'll toss you guys some tokens to get people to do it, post that they did it, and upvote it. And we can show people using the tools that we have that we can incentivize and govern ourselves. So hopefully we can kind of help make a case that we don't need regulate as much in the future on things, right? We can use whatever resources I have. I will definitely support, is my point.
Cool.
Now, is there anybody who helped you, Custom, who you would like to thank for helping you get it done?
Just any of the users that were interested in any of the Polo Lost Keys tokens. Several users sent them on to the cold storage account. You can check out CryptoFresh on the cold storage account to see everyone that did send tokens to them. But no names really jumped to mind. Sorry.
No, you're fine, man. I just asked because you might be surrounded by a bunch of people who you don't know everybody who's helping. But sometimes there's like one or two people who very closely helped you who maybe we tend to, I should probably this person. I do it. I just ask it because I know that you guys, it was a community effort, and it's kind of interesting to see that you didn't have to connect directly with everybody to do it. They kind of just did it on their own, which is self-organizing and kind of what we want to show happens, right?
Yeah, totally. It was just a laugh on Telegram, and it got within 24-hour response from Poloniex, which is unheard of, really.
Yeah. That's really unheard of. Well, hey man, kudos. I'm glad to see this stuff. It wasn't a meanly done thing. But it did get people roused up a little bit. Yeah,
it was a bit tongue in cheek, but it wasn't aggressive or anything.
Assertive and funny. Let's keep it. And it also helped us learn a little bit in the end, right?
Certainly. About
our misgivings and our what we thought about it. Does anybody have any questions or comments that they'd like to bring up on this topic? It's a good topic. I get so upset looking at it every time. It's like, it's under maintenance again.
Yeah, nightmare.
It's almost like being on the negative side of CoinMarketCap advertising. But anyway.
Do you guys know what actually the problem was? Because I had seen something like Block Trades had helped them, or someone had helped them with an issue, but I didn't quite see what the problem was.
I think it's simply down to not maintaining the hot wallet properly.
Because they were mentioning something about an issue with some bug fix that they needed to get their node up and running again.
No, it was pretty much nonsense. It's just a filler text. The problem was that there wasn't enough funds in their hot wallet to fulfill withdrawals, and the solution was to move cold storage funds to their hot wallet, which then, immediately withdrawals started again, and the message went away. I mean, as far as I know, they didn't say anything else,
Yeah, it's one of those things where, well, Nutella makes a good point. So they were just scared of hacking hot storage. That's one of the possibilities. But at the same, this has been something that's happened historically for years, and other things have happened. So our community's always kind of been like, well, yeah. There's always been expectations that there might be incentives. So that's why it's good that rather than worry about it and talk about it, we had people find out, because I wasn't really a big part of this. I did retweet something. But anyway, does anybody have anything else to say about this, or should we move on to Alex P. Morris and his very charitable good deed that I would hope to get him paid a little?
Yeah, let's move on.
Okay, cool. Well, Alex P. Morris is up. He's actually the person who identified a bug in BitShares where when a user is buying something, puts up a buy order, like, maybe it's accidentally too high, you will fill that order with more tokens than you needed to the amount that you accidentally posted that was too much, right? So he actually has gone in and found all of the rounding error issues, and he thinks that he has a solution, but he's not 100%. So he wants to always go to the community and talk about all this stuff. So what I will do is I'll step back and I'll say, Alex, feel free to talk about what give a summary first for anybody who's new to this and doesn't really know what's going on, and then tell everybody what you've done to fix it, and let everybody also know how much time it please.
Thanks, Fuzzy. Yeah, I mean, I've spent a few weeks on this at least because, like I was saying, a lot of it's actually just being able to figure out the code and going through it and getting it up and running. I mean, I think I probably spent, 95% was just dealing with recompiles and testing and understanding what's going on, and then maybe 5% on the actual problem itself. But at this point, I think it's pretty much solved. And since my last post on GitHub, which I put in the links there, I still haven't heard back from ABIT and PMs, who I've sort of been going back and forth on this. So I don't know if that's good or bad. Is that like the next shoe about to drop on my face? But I mean, it does seem like this is a more or less the right solution, and the more they counter me and such, it just kind of keeps confirming it, because it's sort of becoming less and less that of objections, and it's just smaller and smaller things as far as the solution. And just the more I test, even with all my test cases, everything seems to pass. So what you'd actually end up getting is more like a real market, where you put in order, let's say, to buy one of something at a price of one, you'll end up getting that. If you put right now, if you overpay on one leg, you'll end up potentially getting much more at a lower price, which is not what you'd expect. It's like if IBM is trading at $100 a share, and I want to buy 100 shares at $1,000, I'll just get 100 shares at 100. I won't suddenly get 1,000 shares at 100, and that's sort of the way it's working now. Or you'll get some weird pricing in between, or some combination, because it's trying to round off what the size that that you're asking for versus what's actually available in the book. So basically what I did, there was really one issue on the outside that needed to be solved, is because you can flip the book, and that's where it got really tricky, and you sort of had to think in a different way. So even for me, and I think for PM, we're all sort of thinking of this early on from the wrong angle, but in the end, all we really needed was to know which way people are looking at the book, and to let us know. For example, when you look at Open Ledger, take something like whale shares. What do? You're either looking to, almost every time, you're looking to buy whale share, sell whale share. Much less often, it's the opposite. You're not really looking to sell BTS, or buy BTS, sell BTS against whale share. But still, from the context of BitShares, it doesn't really know for sure what you're trying to do. So the closest it can do is make an assumption that you're probably trying to buy and sell whale shares versus BTS. And that's also what I ended up adding in the client wallet. Now you could basically designate nothing as the original functionality, where you can still overpay and such, or you can designate with a true false. Are you targeting the core, which would be BTS, or the test asset, or just the regular asset, which in this case, in this example, would be whale share. And then at that point, it can easily make a determination. Okay, if I say I want 100 whale share at $1,000, it still knows I want 100 whale share. So it just will step up the book and say, oh, okay, there's at least there's 200 whale share available at 2 BTS. He wants 100. Match them off evenly. Does he want any more? It doesn't matter what the other side is. You're done.
Yeah.
You're done. Just by the fact that I can explain it in a much, each time I come on, you probably notice it's simpler and simpler for me to explain, which also tells me I'm on the right track. And that's essentially it. And you guys can see, or also you're welcome to rip it apart. All the tests I've been doing, and I enter the orders in the client wallet, and I see how they work out. Everything looks like it matches in OpenLedger. The one thing is I can't use OpenLedger directly yet, because I'd have to change the Genesis key to my testnet, and I just haven't gotten around to figuring that out. But it's still probably better this way, because I have all the test cases I can just plug right in manually and see what's going on. But I'm kind of proud of the work. Is it the last point in this is, if this does turn out to be the right solution, one thing I also realized, this actually solves it for every graphene chain, because every chain right down to Steemit has this same issue. If you're trading off of the Steemit market, you're going to have this problem on at least on one of the legs, where if you put in, I even wonder if some of that volatility that we see sometimes on the Steemit market's attributed to this, because someone might have put a bigger price or something, and they're just ending up getting some huge fill, maybe even trying to match on an inside market. But so this has the potential to just sort of keep filling until it gets that size, as opposed to just targeting what someone's asking for. So if this works out, technically it'll work for Steemit, Golos, Peer Plays. They can all and any other graphene chain can implement this same code. EOS doesn't seem to have added this market code yet, but I don't see why they weren't planning to, unless they plan to rewrite it. But even if they plan to rewrite it, this would still be an issue. It could potentially be a fix for whatever is coming in EOS as well. At least it shows you the right way to do it, I believe.
So essentially, for newbies, they can boil it. We can boil it down to this for a new. When they were going out trading, if they made an error in how much they wanted, or not how much they wanted, but the price that they wanted to pay for something, and how much they wanted, really.
Well, that's what got tricky, because of the way BitShares works. You see, there actually is not necessarily a quantity. There's in fact, 2 quantities.
Yeah, so let's boil it down very simple, though. We have a term called "explain it like I'm 5." If I'm going to explain to my son, that's what I'm trying to do right now. I might not do it perfectly, but I'm trying to make it so, at least somewhat simple. When you're in there and you're trading, because BitShares isn't just like Bitcoin, where you have a little wallet and you send back and forth to people, just a token. You literally can trade a bunch of tokens on it. Like it's an exchange. And whenever you're on there, it's dangerous for new users to make a mistake, because you can lose a lot of money. But this even amplifies that problem. And you've fixed that amplification of that problem, so it's easier for them to know that whenever they make a mistake, they might make a mistake on the price of something, but it's not gonna really hurt them as much.
Right, There was one other factor to this that was making it even worse, is that because of the way things would match off, if it wasn't matching off evenly, you could even overpay the price. So, forget about a newbie or, just an experienced trader. Is what's going on here? Why is there a price of $1 and I'm paying $1.25? You see, so this also looks to solve that, because what's going to happen is it's going to try and match off the exact size that it can get off at that price, and then any remainder after that, it'll just toss. And which I believe is the right functionality.
What do you mean by toss?
I mean, like you're not going to get some weird fills.
Yeah.
But right. So like, in my testing, for example, like if it can't give you 100 tests, for example, based on the price and what was available, it might end up rounding it off to 99.99. But it's not like it's 120, and it's not like you paid 368 instead of the 320 that's showing. And that might be extreme for a certain case here and there, but it's just to make the point. That's what was happening. And in certain extreme cases, like we saw with the whale shares, you can end up literally overpaying by 40%, because what also made the problem worse is for tokens, the less granularity you have. And of course, people who know the whale shares and such, they have zero granularity, which means you can only buy 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 as opposed to 1.234. So the more decimal places you have, it makes it a little bit better, because obviously everything inside BitShares is decimal oriented. So the more places you have, it means that if I'm buying at $1, I'm not buying a 1. I'm buying maybe like a 10,000, because
it depends. But I understand what you're saying. Like the decimal point does make a difference when it's 1 upvote per. Like the decimal place might not under other circumstances be that big of a deal, but it causes a lot of problems. Like if you're not dealing with 1,000 tokens, right? If you're dealing with 1 or 2.
That's what it is, right? It shows up more because of the smaller numbers, and then it should balance out. But you see, even at the bigger numbers, there is still an effect where you might be, in some cases it might be a little more subtle, but you're still getting weird pricing, mismatches, and it's actually not that hard. To do, instead of putting, because you see, it's like always you have whale share to BTS, but let's say you want 100 whale share at some 200 BTS. It's not that hard to get that backward. You see, because it's not like on a stock or something. It's always in like US dollars. So I'm buying 100 Boeing. Here you're buying. It's more like you're saying on both sides. Like I want 100 Boeing for 28 USD kind of thing, but if you make a mistake and get 28 Boeing for 100 USD, it sounds silly in that context, but that's very easy to do in BitShares.
Yeah, and that ends up, you fill all that order and you've paid a crap ton more than you wanted.
Yeah, or you got a lot more than you expected. It's like I thought I was getting 100, now I got 1,000. And
now, can I interrupt you real quick?
Yeah.
I just want to ask you one question, because when we've talked about it in the past, you've said, when we've talked about it privately, you've talked about how this can be gamed. So there could literally be gaming of this system going on within BitShares for past 3 or 4 years. Not saying that it is happening, but if it's available, somebody's probably taken advantage of it. You're probably not the first person to figure this out.
Well, that's actually the other side of it. I mean, it's kind of surprising that no one's really tackled this earlier, because, it even threw me off at the beginning, just some of the stuff I was coming up with. Like at first I thought, could this be like a margin call related issue or something? Because there were literally issues going back to the beginning of BitShares 2.0. And I think this might have even gone on before then. But, there's a lot of talk in the forums going about, what's going on with this? Why are we getting mismatched, strange pricing? And in the end, it was sort of determined, it's rounding issues. And that's where it was sort of settled. But no one really took the time, I guess, just to tackle it. And I think there is, to some degree, there was an incentive for at least some people to take advantage, because, you can sit on the inside markets of contracts, especially where this effect might be what's the term? Accentuated because of, like in a whale share case. I mean, you can sit there with a big size and hope that someone slips up, and even if you're at 6, someone comes in and buys at 8.5, and you'll get filled at 8.5, even though you're sitting at 6, and the other guy gets screwed, and you have an instant scalp. And you can try and now flip it at the bid, or just even take the inside market, and you have a instant 40% profit.
So for gobbledygook, for those people who are, let's explain it like it's 5, because I want to just really quickly say, Alex, you have what, 20 plus years of actually like building market making stuff for stock market, right?
Yeah, stocks, forex, futures. I've done all this kind of stuff, so I know kind of all the tricks
this is
yeah.
your playground. This is where this is your sandbox. You know what you're talking about, which people can, I think, tell by the wording that you choose, right? So to just like really quickly explain it like we're five, there could be a guy with a black hat out there and a shadowed face sitting at his laptop setting up bots to fish, almost, to get people to accept these things, or could watch markets and find patterns and say, oh, these people are doing X, Y, and Z. I can benefit from this stuff, right? From this problem that they haven't fixed. And they can kind of skim from the top.
Yeah, it's not necessarily that easy to do, because you do have to sort of spread out. I mean, and you can't really analyze it either. To some degree, you can, like, where is there a tendency that people overpay on certain ones? But it's more, I think, about well, sometimes the least liquid legs are probably the best ones. You see, because what's interesting about this is someone could just make one bad mistake and they have enough money in their wallet that it's like if I'm sitting there on a lot of different pairs. And just even trying to sell like 1,000 or something, even if I don't get the whole thing, but that's if someone tries to buy like 20,000 of something, well, I just he put in a wrong price. I immediately take off 1,000 of that, and if I'm spread over a large amount, and if I have enough BTS, I mean, there's people out there with millions and millions of BTS, so they can certainly spread around. So they can get they pick up just a few of these overprices, even overpays, even a month. Yeah, I mean, that could be a huge amount that they're collecting over the years. Yeah. So yeah, that's one of the first things I thought is like, if I'm trying to fix this or I'm bringing this up, well, there's going to be some people who might be pissed because it's literally, that might be how they're making all their money off of this. It's sort of like the stuff with Steemit, though. It's all on the blockchain, for people to analyze and such. And if you want to take the time to do it, but. Like I say, in the end, it's better just to fix it, because if you don't, and that's the thing. It's like it was brought up before. I'm not the first. It seemed like a lot of people just rather, push it under the table or work on other things. So, hey, there's going to be people who try and take advantage of it, especially if you have enough BTS to do it with.
Well, I wanted to thank you for three different things that you've done about this. One is to identify and describe it well. Kind of at the DEX level in terms of users and traders, and you documented it really well in your GitHub issue, and I think that was essential. And then on top of it, you also set up unit tests to highlight this phenomenon, which is also doubly beneficial. And to finally, on top of it, you also provided a potential patch, a fix for the issue. So I think for all those three things, I mean, it's I'm very appreciative for what you've done here.
Taco, can we put a worker proposal in and like try to talk about with me to see how much they would like to try to go?
That's a good idea.
I'll help promote it.
Yeah.
It's like work a proposal and the work's done. It's kind of
exactly.
Funny,
no, that's the way. I prefer it to be that way, honestly.
Well, but the funny thing is that's also why it's like, because in the end you never know with these things. Like, well, what if you can't pull through? So it's technically it's like it's getting paid for fixing something after the fact, as opposed to well, is he going to be able to pull it through? I don't know, but
it also is a matter of getting paid for a unit of work as opposed to an hourly rate and you demonstrated that you can do it. So I mean, it's a win-win for everybody, other than perhaps the developer that's doing it, because they don't know if they're going to get paid for it in the end. But I think if you do good quality work, as you've demonstrated, Alex, you'll see that you'll get rewarded for it.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I've been telling Fuzzy. I mean, that wasn't my goal in any of this. I'm just kind of trying to fix something that I see as a problem, and something, things like this just irk me when I'm, especially if I'm involved in the market.
Well, let me ask you a question, Alex.
I've seen it happen to others, and there's nothing like. I mean, you just see how people flip out over like a Polonia.
Well, let me ask you a question, Alex. How many people do you think who have the level experience that you have, who would join BitShares, see that problem, and stay.
Well, I mean, it was like freaking me out. Like, what the hell's going on here? What's being game? If you remember when I first started noticing these weird trades coming up and these weird prices, I mean, I was bringing it up like, in fact, that's what part of, because I had seen some of this stuff. I didn't remember all of it, but when I was telling you early on, like, when you're like, oh, well, why aren't you on BitShares? I said, well, there's just a lot of weirdness there. I didn't remember all of it, but this was some of the stuff I remember having come across several years ago.
Isn't part of the fact? Isn't part of your apprehension here is that when you come to a new community, you don't know how things are working, but then you observe and you kind of think, well, it should be working this way, but this is not my experience. It's like, this must be something I'm doing wrong, and so you kind of doubt yourself as to whether or not you've identified a real problem. But the more you get into it and research it and realize it is a real problem, then you took action and you posted about it to confirm it. And that's when we got into this.
Yeah, and also, like I said, it's not even like I'm the first one to bring this up. But, it's like what, and I know, some people rather like put their head in the sand.
You're the first one to bring it up that could do something about it, though.
Yeah. Because like I said, I mean, it wasn't an easy path, but it's mostly, like I said, 95% of the time was literally, I'll tell you, 3/4 of the time was just waiting for recompiles. I mean, if I edited a low-level part of the code, on a market structure that's hit by every other part of the BitShares core, I might have to wait 45 minutes just to see if that one little extra dot that I put in was right.
Fuzzy asked if how many newbies would actually experience this situation and stick around, and I feel like I was one of them, and I should have, and probably most people, I probably would have just cut my losses split whenever I had my little incident that I believe this is directly related to.
Well, that's also my point. That's why I've been kind of shouting out at the top of my lungs about this, because people are like, oh, well, don't tell anyone this, or you should just fix it. Well, first of all, it's been out there for years and no one's done crap about it. But what I'll tell you is just like exactly what you said. If you're aware of it, then it's like, oh, okay, I just have to be really careful with it. Oh, they're working on it. You don't have a problem with that. Most people would not have an issue with that. But when when they're expecting things to work a certain way, which is just like makes sense. I mean, it's like you don't go to the grocery store buying one orange and then suddenly you come out with 20 of them and have to put them on your credit card because it's a lot more than you paid
20. Yeah, you paid 20 for 20 of them.
Right, and it's like, sorry, but that's you screwed up your order, and it's not like you can go back and complain to anyone because it's a blockchain and it's locked in, and so it's like it's not even like anyone could even help you with it. So it's like, as long as people are aware of things, they'll be understanding, because they'll see like, oh, okay, maybe they're working on it. It might be tricky to fix, but at least I know I have to be very careful of this, otherwise that can happen or whatever. But to just push it under the table and then make it like it's not an issue, and then what Mr. Wang was saying, and suddenly you make that mistake. Well, just think of what happens, Poloniex. People are going to scream at the top of their lungs just because they're not getting back to them fast enough. And that's rightly so, because, when people's money are at stake, especially as it can get bigger, you want to attract bigger fish on BitShares. The more money you have at stake. Look, if I'm messing around with $20 here and there, it's not as big of a deal. But, if you want to attract people who are going to trade back and forth with bigger size, it's got to work as expected, because otherwise my size is going down to nothing until I know what the hell's going on.
Yeah, well,
I think we keep this topic to the
killer.
I would like to say thank you for what you've accomplished, man. It has been there was a little bit of friction early on, but I'm glad to see that the community some of the developers have helped you. And let's talk about this about how we kind of rally around, help Alex. Alex, I know he's not the type of person who's going to ask for it, so I have to push for it. So I would ask that you guys all consider helping, give him some funding for his expertise and his time. We have a lot of funding, so we should empower, and that just comes back to. So anyway, thank you very much, Alex, and obviously you can join up to give updates on this anytime. Maybe come back when we've paid you and say how the BitShares blockchain paid you. But anyway, let's go ahead and really quickly cover the two topics that Taco and I talk about. Is that okay with you, Taco?
Yes, of course.
Okay, well, put down your taco. Let's get on to the GUI worker proposal. And
all right, fortunately, it's only for a few minutes.
Okay.
Sure. So as a recap of what happened during the past week, the GUI worker proposal that was submitted by Bill Butler was approved. And that was after an extensive discussion within the community. Initially, it had a good portion of the votes required in order to pass and get approved, but it was still short by, I don't know, approximately 25% of what was ultimately needed. And then there was discussion with among those who had not voted for it, and many of those were within the Chinese community, and so the discussions were, I guess, enhanced by one of the members of the community, Zhao Mu, who's available. His ID is also LZMLAM on Steam. And one of the things that he was able to do was both to translate the worker proposal and also to reach out to members of the Chinese community on different forums, on Mandarin language forums, where they discuss. And this apparently was very helpful because. Well, let's step back and I'll talk about the how it was helpful. But it was helpful, and because of that, an extra discussion ensued and suggestions about how the worker proposal should be modified. And ultimately, what it was is the worker proposal was modified to essentially be a bounty system, where Bill Butler would create estimates of various issues that are available on GitHub and which anybody can submit. So there essentially bounty claims were set for various issues, and effectively because of that, also a price for each issue to be fixed. And so with that modification to the worker proposal, that worker proposal was finally got the remaining votes that were needed for it to be approved. So that's a recap of the approval for that specific proposal.
That's this is something that we've been trying to get talked about for so long, but it seems like it's linked up with GitHub. Yeah. So anybody who observes an issue with the GUI reference wallet can put up. Well, if they find an issue that they should first go to GitHub, check to see whether that issue is already posted by somebody else beforehand. And if it is, then they don't necessarily need to do anything unless they have maybe extra information about that issue. However, if it is a new issue, be somebody else take over. Yeah, I think, you're cutting out a little bit. So if somebody has an issue and it's new, they should just write about it. Yeah, because it's very important that what you're talking about.
Yeah, it's a matter of using GitHub as a central repository for the issues themselves, which require people to search them to make sure they're not already done first, and then to write up exactly with screenshots if possible, as much information as you can about the issue and the mock-ups that you might like to see how it should be instead of the way it is. Just enough to give a developer a sense of just what it is you are seeing as an issue, so that they can proceed forward, make an estimate of the amount of time required, or dismiss it if it's already addressed in some other fashion.
Well, I'll say this. This is like adding a layer for worker proposal type of work like that. Obviously, we've needed bounties for quite some time, and bounties have been shown to be a relatively effective way of getting things done in the crypto space. It's been
the biggest win for this, Fuzzy, is the bond, the improvement in relations between the Eastern and Western development.
Yeah, that's a good point.
That's the biggest win, because we had an impasse. And this relatively small change of terms of the writing required for a work proposal made all the difference in the world. We got a lot more enthusiasm on the part of the Chinese developers. In fact, now I think for the first time ever, we are seeing. Well, I shouldn't say for the first time ever, because A-Bit has done quite a bit. A-Bit and the other A. I always forget who the other A guy. There's two A guys from the Eastern Bloc that that are developers that have been participating for quite a long time. I don't want to slight either one of them. That's it. I never seem to remember both of them for some reason. At any rate, they've been involved for a while, but there are very few Chinese people that are willing to involve themselves in the development of BitShares.
And I think this is a little bit related also to kind of the next topic. I think now with this bounty system, and also with the exposure that it's gained within the Chinese community, there is going to be, I think, an increased participation from that side of the community.
And that's a very good thing. We need to decentralize all aspects of the ecosystem as much as we can, including development. And, it just makes for more contributions, make for more choices for end users for making this platform better. We don't want to reduce how many people contribute. We want to increase how many people can contribute. Now, we will have a review issue that will come up at some point, but I think at this stage, that's not going to be an issue.
Right. And if it's okay, maybe I can jump on to maybe the lessons learned from this experience.
Go.
Okay. So I think where's a good place to start? One individual in particular should be highlighted here for his assistance, and that was Zhao Mu, who's again, his ID is LZMLAM on Steam. He was super helpful with the translations and with communicating with different members of the Chinese community. And I think I also at the same time want to thank various members of the Chinese community, including ABIT, BitCrab, and Alt, who are also coming over to the English language forums, both on Telegram and on the BitShares talk forums, to also exchange ideas about what were their concerns before the modification and also what their suggestions were. Sometimes, occasionally, maybe the suggestions were, maybe not desirable, but I think overall the communications is the key part. Whatever the opinions happen to be, the communications enables us to find common ground and see how we can proceed further. In addition, this also highlights, I think, what can be improved in the future for future proposals and also for a future roadmap as to how we can improve communications between different communities, whether it's Mandarin speakers and English speakers, or even other speakers in Japanese or Spanish, in terms of highlighting where are these different communities and maybe having translators and or liaisons to these different communities so that communications is improved, and also we can identify what are the concerns and what are the desires for the different parts of the communities. And
some
I think
type of ambassadors program.
Yeah. I mean, a little related, yes. And so there's a question about how we can foster that and assist that. I know, for example, Zhao Mu has mentioned that he is open towards assisting with translations and is thinking and is translations in both directions, English to Mandarin, Mandarin to English. And so that's one thing that he is available out there to assist with that dialogue between those two languages. In addition, let's see, I think it also highlights that at least this was a point that Zhao Mu wanted to highlight. At least with many members of the Chinese community, it's not necessarily that they were opposed to worker proposals in principle, because clearly, for example, before the GUI proposal, there were 2 workers that have recently been approved. There's the core maintenance worker. There was also the BSIP 18 that was also approved. And so the main highlight is the concern for just setting up a worker that can ensure high quality work. And so that was a significant concern. And I think, this approach with Bounty is certainly one way to accomplish that. And as long as you have reviewers that are trusted within the community, such as Bill Butler is one example, this can enhance it. As a side note, I think also the efforts with something like the BitShares Foundation is also an effort to address that concern, especially if you have new developers or even old developers. This idea about having a review process so that any work is not automatically paid, but is contingent on the success and quality of the work. Yeah. I think
that quality control aspect is really important, and I'm glad you brought that up to reemphasize it, because right now, like I said, right now we don't have an issue with review, but that is a good role for the foundation to play. But we just need developers that can scrutinize the code and act as a peer review team. That's what we basically are going to be needing.
That's what all experts do. They always have peer reviews because they recognize expert means nothing unless you have other experts checking.
Right. And I think just, in general, just a little bit on the technical side, one way that helps a lot, and it's not always possible, but in many cases it is possible, are unit tests, which just make it easier for, let's say, a third party to more easily review at a higher level whether a particular feature is fixed or improved or implemented. So that's just a little bit on the technical side.
But the unit tests are really important too, because a reviewer that's coming in could actually look at the unit test to see what it is that's being scrutinized and get a flavor for the overall process of what the fix is all about, just from looking at the unit test, if it's a very comprehensive unit test.
Yeah, and I think this touches on something which we spoke about a few weeks ago, which was ultimately witnesses are kind of the witness operators are the final threshold or the final reviewers. And I think asking all witness operators to be the ultimate reviewer of sometimes very intricate code is very difficult. And I think one thing that would help witnesses to review that are the unit tests, because those are at a higher level and should self-document what is a feature that is being fixed or implemented. So I think that's also necessary and helpful for witnesses. If this is a change at core level. Oh, and heck, this is even necessary if this is a change at the GUI levels, because then this is a process by which wallet providers, such as OpenLedger, such as Rudex, or others, if they're deciding whether or not to bring on a change at the GUI level, they need to be able to review it. And if there's a unit test that can easily demonstrate a capability, that's helpful for them too.
Could somebody here that's React expert explain whether or not React provides a framework for creating unit tests in a GUI? Because I know in the past, testing GUIs required a human to really do it well. Otherwise, they're really expensive software to evaluate the pixels on the screen. But nowadays, I'm thinking that the instrumentation might be at a lower level, might be able to adequately do the GUI testing. But could somebody speak to that?
Let me puncture this discussion real quick and say we've got about 30 seconds before we're going to have to move on to the next one. So, or maybe we'll give it, but if anybody has the answer to this, please go ahead.
I just posted something. Facebook did create some kind of test utilities. You can take a look at what I posted.
Thank you, sir. That's good enough for now.
Thank you, Al. And sorry to move us on, but there is, I think it is a good idea to cover this, and CM Steam posted about it, ideas for future BSIPs. There's a lot of stuff that needs done with the BitShares blockchain thriving and growing in this ecosystem as new chains pop up. There's a lot of barriers, but we have the funding to break down barriers or build bridges that go over them, whatever way that we want to do it, depending on the circumstances. So BSIPs are BitShares improvement projects for those who are not aware of. And CM Steam, aka Custom Miner, would like to bring that up in this discussion, but I'll go ahead and I'll hand the torch off to you on this one, Custom.
Hey, cool. So just to keep it brief, the idea is that, if there's ever been like a well-received discussion on BitShares Talk or Steemit regarding like a possible, BitShares feature, we should attempt to condense the information, from the thread, like 20 pages odd, into a draft BSIP, from which, future torchbearers will be able to skip researching these threads for the relevant information and potentially have like a head start towards actually implementing it. So my ideas for future BSIPs that I'll look into are, side chains such as like EOS or BlockNet or whatever, other decentralized platforms that we could potentially sidechain with, or and also the sheer dropping of user issued assets against external crypto holders via the private key import. So this is the fast Bitcoin, Bitcoin X or whatever that Stan's been looking into.
This is what makes me pumped.
I think it does require some BSIP in the first place. I'm pretty sure it's something that's being privately done within Cryptonomics at the moment. But it's always good for additional people to have a crack at the documentation in the first place. I think the fast Bitcoin will be a really cool way of effectively buying users onto the BitShares network from Bitcoin. But likewise, if it works for fast Bitcoin, then we should it'd be really cool to, maybe take a snapshot of, like, say, 20 odd proof of work cryptos to get all of their user bases if it's not that expensive. You know what I mean? So these are the things I'm interested in, and I'd like to hear what you're interested in. Anyone, if you've participated in a discussion that really kind of went nowhere despite having some good feedback and some good ideas. Throw some keywords out there.
Yeah, I think I'm definitely glad you're bringing this up, both as a way to get the ideas out there, to consolidate them from, let's say, the forums, and these two particular ones that you brought up, I think are valuable. Yeah. In addition, well, we'll talk about it another time.
Certainly.
Well, of course, there's time if people would like to bring it up. I don't mind. We started a few minutes late, so I don't mind having a couple more. But I will say I have one that I believe is, we've talked about it, and that is we've already talked about the degrading votes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good one. But I also have been thinking, we've talked about it a little bit, the idea of locking away funds in a way that helps the BitShares ecosystem, but also gives you voting rights, or maybe stronger rights, because you're willing to take more of a long risk. Because that was one of the most brilliant aspects that I saw from Steam with Dan. He said, we want people who are long-term holders to have an incentive to be long. We want voters to be people who have a long-term future in mind, or at least something where if they cause damage, like for instance, 13 weeks, if you cause damage to the network, you're really hurting yourself a lot if you have enough tokens to really cause damage, right? And that's kind of what I would like to see us discuss in the future of this stuff.
Well, look at what happened with Steam with regard to Steam Power, that long-term incentive, which I agree with you. When I read the white paper, that was one of the things that stood out to me as a great thing to ensure longer-term perspective to help with the platform, as opposed to short-term trading interests and just are looking for the outcome to be the best profit for a short time frame. So I think but they changed it from 2 years to 3 months or 30 days or something. A huge change. Months. It wasn't an adjustment; it was a huge change.
13 weeks.
A change in philosophy. So in my view, that was, I wouldn't have gone so short. I might have reduced it, but I don't think I would have gone that short. But, there was such a community outcry to reduce it. And it's all just because of the short-term perspective. That's what I see driving it.
Well, and that's exactly what I mean. Like, as it is, somebody could come in with a bunch of money or a bunch of BitShares that they buy up, throughout, and could have no real interest in BitShares. They could just attack us. Now, yeah, they might lose money, but there are situations where if you're a competing chain, for instance,
or another DEX, a centralized DEX, for example,
and you have the funds. And it's an opportunity cost for you, like you're paying a little bit of money to do this, and it's a risk. But it's also, if it's potentially going to kill the dragon that would eat you someday if you let it get fed, there are, all I'm saying is there's more of an incentive for people to attack if they don't have to lock away tokens into the ecosystem to gain voting.
But in the same way, Fuzzy, we have to be careful that whatever incentive we provide to hold funds for this, we don't also incentivize competition. For example, these large centralized exchanges obviously have a huge block of BTS that they could use, because we have not yet found a way, other than decaying votes, we haven't found a way to decrease their power. So, whatever incentive we provide, we've got to realize that players like that may also want to use it for not the same intent we want.
Just to jump in, I do think it's an interesting idea to counter centralized exchanges from voting, because if they had to lock away their funds, then they wouldn't be able to provide their users the ability to withdraw. On the other hand, maybe we could implement blacklisting of certain accounts from voting, but that could introduce centralization risk,
Yeah,
there's issues with doing that. Sure, it's how do we identify those accounts? If whatever mechanisms you provide for identifying a centralized exchange's account, could apply to anybody, and we don't have a handle on identity to the extent that we can exclude people in terms of a class that they might belong to. We don't have that infrastructure in place.
Well, I'll say this. I knew that it was going to be a discussion that would probably spill over, but I did want to bring it up since you brought up this BSIP question, and I love the BSIPs that you have, because let's face it, share dropping, you understand share dropping is like gaining network effect, right? Especially if we can do it and make them join BitShares and in order to get their share drops, right? Things like that are, it's hard for me to explain how powerful they are. And it's a wonderful idea. Now, with that said, I'm just going to really quickly, if you guys don't mind, I'm going to thank everybody who joined up here today. I'm going to say that this week, sometime, I'm going to be posting to Steam a poll to see what time. I'll probably be doing it tonight, actually, maybe tomorrow. But it's going to be a poll to see what all of you guys think if we should move these Hangouts and the whale tanks to Saturdays. Because I can't help but think that while people are watching morning cartoons, they want to do this on Saturday. And I know a lot of people work on Fridays during the time when we have Hangouts, or they've just gotten off work. So it might be like, this is a historically significant time that we did it for certain reasons early on, but maybe it is time to move to Saturdays. Now, with that said, we'll talk about it in the post that I post, and I hope that you guys support all these and continue to do so. I appreciate all the funding. We build a lot, while I know for a fact that a lot of whales do not always do a lot of building. I'm not calling people out. I'm not putting them down. Free market, do what you're going to do, unless we're finding you do other things and we're lining it up. But support the people who support everybody, and that's what we do. So I appreciate everybody who's here today. Look for that poll. And then I'll be posting later on what time the next Hangout's going to be this week. Please support those. Thank you to all of you for being part of this.